Droids play an interesting role in the Star Wars universe. In the background, droids function as general labor. Any menial task, if you are able to afford a droid, they do it. They usually have a primary function or job that they specialize in, such as mechanic assistant, translator, protocol, programmers, pilots, traditional servants, security, soldiers, caretakers, healthcare professionals. They fulfill any job a humanoid isn't prepared to do. In addition, they are like mobile computers. They are able to hold large computational data in their banks and calculate coordinates to the jump to hyperspace when navicomputers are absent. Droids are sentient. They are self-aware. There are some general rules about droids in the Star Wars universe. First, all droids have a basic set of commands and directives which allow them to function in their primary role. Restraining bolts added to any droid will reinforce these commands and directives. These are referred to as their basic programming or base programming. 2. They have protocols that must be obeyed. We have proof of this from a few sources, including the Star Wars Force Awakens novelization, in which BB-8 wants to disobey what Poe Dameron has requested of him to flee the scene with the map to Luke Skywalker, and he is unable to disobey a direct command from his master. 3rd, they are slaves bound to a master or masters, whom they must obey. There are masterless droids in canon, or manumated droids. Bounty hunter droids have been seen in Clone Wars, and Cone, a droid in the background of Rogue One, who was mentioned in the visual dictionary, was manumated and is now seeking spirituality, which is kind of a wonderful concept. L3 might have been manumated from the Solo movie, but we're unsure as Lando still refers to her as his droid. 4. Droids can feel emotion. They can feel pain. They can feel danger and fear being destroyed. Recently, I started rewatching the Clone Wars, and this really makes me feel a lot of sympathy for the battle droids who, especially the more recent models, are individuals, as they like to call themselves. And they certainly do feel the fear of being destroyed. 5. Droids dream in standby or power down mode to defragment and correct bad programming or build new subroutines, and to ensure that they are in good working order. This is how they improve themselves and how they learn from old situations. We know that R2-D2 was in a sort of coma while he was waiting for Luke to return in The Force Awakens. This gives them a sort of mortality as they get older, in a way, if they don't end up getting wiped. 6. Droids are effectively appliances in the Star Wars society. Like, why would you ever feel bad for a toaster? Everything in the Star Wars universe that can control a function on its own has a droid brain or a computer. Like, the Falcon has L3, we now know, as well as 2 other droid brains, and they don't get along. Cloud City Central Computer also has a droid brain, and R2 has an interesting conversation with it on Bespin. 7. They require power and maintenance, such as oil baths. Luke asks R2-D2 on Dagobah if he would like to get plugged in for a while, and this has been explored in canon that power is required, and either they need some sort of battery or they need to be charged up regularly to make sure that they're still functioning. They're actually limited to civilized areas of the galaxy because if not, they're easy prey to scavengers like Jawas and, on Jakku, Tito's. 8. They believe in a higher power the Maker. The Maker has been described as some sort of fundamental part of their code, as formative as speaking binary. It's been described as the old way or the respectful way, and it fulfills a certain interesting narrative when you talk about old computing languages that speak to the core of the droid. The Maker is often used in respect to being a savior or something of a higher power that droids believe in. We certainly have seen many references to the Maker from C-3PO. 9. It is an exception for droids to lie. They usually see no point in it unless they have developed some sort of subroutine to allow them to lie with a purpose. We have seen lies from R2-D2 in which he is justified because of his greater mission, including lying to Luke, who was his new master and who a restraining bolt was applied to, so that he could seek out Obi-Wan and fulfill his original mission from Leia. 10. People who refuse to wipe their droids will often have their droids develop personality, which allows them to learn from their experiences and gives them memories that they can defragment, and that allows them to adjust their programming. With this, they are able to disobey their masters and make their own decisions. Not wiping your droids is the basis for conscious, self-driven droids. It seems that their base programming and memory allows droids to write new ways of handling situations. Every droid can learn. However, without retained long-term memory, these droids are no more complex than Roombas. And they are treated that way by many Star Wars sentients, no matter how complex their functioning and ability to talk back. Without wiping them, their subroutines that they create allows for creativity, and this could take many forms, including artistry, personal quirks, and even passion to have a greater purpose. As it is Star Wars best practice to wipe your droid regularly, droids realize that this is about to happen in universe and are visibly upset. At the end of Revenge of the Sith, Bail Organa chooses to wipe C-3PO, though he's perfectly capable of hiding Padme and Anakin's marriage secret for years. It also seems that though droids are wiped, sometimes old data still exists. This is best talked about with C-3PO and K2SO. It seems that they still have the personalities that they might have had from years ago, and maybe some character flaws built in there. There exist tools for forced servitude, restraining bolts and restraining bands, that limit the ability of the droid to disobey orders and run away. Which begs the question, why were these invented? These thoughts raise ethical, philosophical, and cultural questions about the Star Wars universe. They're never fully answered in the current narrative, but it does create interesting threads for future storytelling. We've seen a few examples of droid freedom fighting now in canon, and I'm very excited to see more, including a full-blown droid rebellion would be wonderful. Be it R2-D2, C-3PO, BB-8, Chopper, AP-5, K2SO, or our newest droid, L3, in Solo, they all have interesting stories to tell because they are always watching and no one notices the droid.